Hey everyone, and welcome to the Rewired Eating Podcast. I am Ian Bickle, and I am joined with the very wonderful Liz Hancock. Hello,
Hello.
hello, Liz. Ask Liz, what would you like from today's podcast? I always love that. It's like a coaching thing, and she said to inspire and to motivate, which I love. Um, Liz, she specializes in money, trauma, and also divorce, something I have a
Mm.
great deal of experience in. Well, the second one, a little bit. Liz, could you please give us a little introduction to who you are and why you do what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on, Ian. It's such a pleasure to be here. Yeah, and I'm really excited about this chat. So, um, what was the question? Why am I here? What,
Who are you, Liz? It's a
who
great
am
start.
I? Oh, that's a really good question. Who am I? I call myself the EFT coach. And the reason I call myself that is because I am an EFT tapping practitioner. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, also known as tapping without the needles, also known as tapping. And we describe it quite often as acupuncture without the needles. That's just one of the tools I use. I call myself an EFT coach because a lot of practitioners they kind of deal with what's presenting, they dig down a bit, but I think I've got enough experience now to really be able to draw out from my clients what's really going on here. What's I create sort of like this big jigsaw puzzle, and I'm putting the pieces together, and the seemingly irrelevant pieces for what they're dealing with at that time in the moment and what they've come to me with, they're so often connected to past, basically traumas and things that have happened to them, their programming, even generational things from grandparents and beyond. And it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. um, I do use a lot of other modalities. I am wondering about whether the EFT coach is the right name for me now. But it's just transformation, basically, and trauma, transformation from trauma. I absolutely love it. And why am I here doing what I do? Because I love it, because I can see the difference I'm making in the world. And not worldwide. Well, I do have clients from different countries, but there's just so much potential. There's so many people that need what we do, not just me, but what we do. And I want to be part of that ripple.
And this is exactly why I got you on the podcast. Liz and I have been friends for quite a while now.
Mhm.
And every time we have a conversation, like there's just so many parallels between the food stuff, the nutrition stuff, and how people are stuck in that toxic relationship, and they are stuck with toxic relationships having to do with money or men or women, because you work primarily with women, but with some gentlemen also.
Mhm.
Um, and I wanted to kind of like pick your brains a little bit because I know there's a lot of people who are going to be listening to this who are women who are going through phases of their life. And as you said, this is very much about change. And
Mhm.
we spoke a little bit off air, like picking your battles, understanding when it is and it isn't a good time, maybe to start addressing certain aspects of your life with so many numerous things going on. Like, what are the most common things you see when people are going through these divorces, and what's going on to them psychologically, emotionally, biologically? Like, what is it that you are finding time and time again that you're dealing with?
Mm. Great question. Um, I think sometimes it depends who's initiating it, but more and more women are initiating divorce. And what I found is that, and was certainly my own experience, they've already done the grieving, not all the grieving, but a lot of it. So actually, quite often they have a surge of excitement or relief, or this like surge of energy when the marriage ends, especially if it's amicable-ish. Or at least it's not, oh my God, I've got to get out of here because my husband's so awful or abusive or whatever. But if it's, and my marriage was the former. I had grieved for 9 months before I left him, and And at first I was so excited and everyone was going, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, don't be, it's the best thing I've ever done, which I still believe 100%. And we did get on at first, you know, I was still very, I still really, really cared about him. So at first I felt fantastic. And I felt like, yeah, I really want to look after myself. I'm not like in a pit of despair or depression or whatever. I did feel like that at times. I had gone through a really hard time in the run up to leaving him. And looking back, I don't think I realized how much that had affected me. But so you get that kind of surge of all those good things. But I think then, I mean, I didn't even Google how to get divorced for a whole year. We were purely focused on the children and making sure each other, well, I was focused on making sure he was okay anyway. Looking back, I don't think he was focused on making sure I was okay. But then it caught up with me later on because he did turn. He turned after I met someone 9 months after I finished with him, and then 2 years later, when that ended very badly, he kind of jumped on the bandwagon and really turned against me. So at some point, it usually does turn nasty. And it was at that time that I decided to readdress the finances because I had just trusted him and we'd done it between us. We hadn't got any financial consent order in place. And I realized actually I'm really exposed here. And so I had to start that, which made him even more furious. So my divorce was kind of, it was almost a delayed thing. So the marriage itself wasn't abusive, but the treatment I have had 2 years afterwards was 2.5 years afterwards or more, and still is. It's still really bad sometimes, most of the time. I don't have much to do with him anymore, but we're still battling the finances. Thank God I have this money mindset stuff because I rely on that. So other people quite not necessarily that extreme with the timescales, but they quite often go through this surge of feeling great. And yeah, we're going to do it amicably and we're working together. And then once it actually comes to getting the divorce done, the paperwork and the finances, it all goes a bit wrong and the wheels come off. And that's usually when they get upset or depressed or, you know, anxious. They start needing more support. Then you've got the other extreme, people who are kind of fleeing terrible marriages, or it's a complete shock and surprise to them and they get left. And that is, you know, that's especially if you're in shock, it's hard. And if your partner has been grieving without you knowing and has left and is feeling like I just described, like I was, like, yeah, this is great. They will probably go through a body transformation, suddenly have all this energy for the gym or running or, you know, getting fit, maybe going dating straight away. That's what my ex-husband did, even though he was shocked and sad. You know, and then that's just leaves you with so much confusion and, you know, you're still trying to like catch up with what's happened. So whichever way you look at it, there's going to be stress and trauma at some point. It just depends how the situation goes, really. But I think like when I broke up with my partner, which was really traumatic, he did assault me at the end. It was so awful. I basically couldn't eat. You know, I just wasn't hungry. I felt sick all the time. And for me, it was like, great. Well, at least there's one upside. I'm getting really, really slim and I look great in a bikini and it's no effort at all. But then, which is like, yes, this is brilliant. And then it's like, okay, now all the initial like craziness settles down. I'm getting hungry again. My body's in this low level with spikes of fight or flight. So actually it's clinging on to food and I've wrecked my metabolism from basically not eating for 2 months. And so therefore my body's all over the place. I'm all over the place. I'm putting on weight and I don't want to. I'm suddenly, you know, really overwhelmed and stressed. I've got so much more on my plate because I'm a single mum now. And so I don't have time to exercise. I've lost the love for it. I'm eating rubbish. Sorry, nearly
You
said
can
a bad
swear,
word
Lou. You
then.
can
Oh, good,
say
good, good.
you can swear. Well,
I'm eating shit, and you know, and it all catches up with you. So it's gonna catch up with you at some point. And I think people whose bodies aren't affected going through this are few and far between. Um, and let you know, let's not don't get me wrong, it can be a really good reset. It can be, you know, I do think divorce is underrated in many ways. It can be a time where you're like, right, I've got a second chance at life now. I'm going to do it right. But then if you're trying to do everything at the same time, then that can catch up with you as well. So we're
Hmm.
basically FUCK'd, whatever we do.
You can say that word too. You know, we're fucked. But
We are, aren't
wait,
we? We can be. That's
we
why we
said
need help.
motivate and inspire, so hopefully we can help these women who, like, I see it all of the time. It's almost like this, what guys maybe consider like this midlife crisis.
Mm,
And you're at this point in your life where it's like, right, is this it? And as you
mm,
said, there is this beautiful opportunity there amongst all of the chaos. And maybe, and this is, I think, the power of coaching is having someone who isn't emotionally attached,
mm.
but who just primarily wants the very best from you and can see the potential that
Yeah.
is there, even though that you can't see it, and through different modalities and techniques. And as you said, it kind of that surface level stuff doesn't matter. It's that transformation, it's that change,
Mm,
that you becoming the person, the woman that you are capable of,
mm,
um, and flourishing and thriving in life, which I think is the really kind of rewarding aspect of all of this. And whilst, like, because there's only so many people we can work with, we can't change the world per se, but we can change individuals' worlds and how
mhm,
they see it and how they enter it and walk into it. So I think it's really like beautiful what you do with people, because the impact is, as we say, transformational. Um, when it comes to your journey into this space,
mhm.
am I hearing that this was largely contributed by the experiences that you had and thought, you know what, there's going to
Yeah.
be so many women out there that go through these challenges that I have. I need to help people because I never had that help. I mean, who helped
Mm,
you, Liz? Was this
mm.
something like a self-taught thing?
No, no, well, in some self-help in some ways, but only because I had the tools. But I did need other people as well. Um, so the reason I started niching in money, so I had EFT, I had this skill, and I had this sort of little business. My kids were really young; it was pretty much a hobby business. And then Josh went to school. He started school, and I was like, right, I'm going to grow this. And I started to do that, but my mind kept getting in the way. Am I good enough? Imposter syndrome. Can I really do this? Can I really build a business being a mum to two kids who there's only 19 months between them, and a husband that works in the city whose job is like his life, and nothing can get between him and his job. So I could never rely on him to help. And there was a lot of doubt, a lot of insecurity. And I found this tapping into wealth coach training, and it transformed my life. It was like wrapped up as money, but really that was just a marketing thing. Because it wasn't just about money, it was about our feeling good enough and how we were treated as children and our parents' programming and all those things. And the biggest thing I got out of that, it made me a much better mother because I could see how much my childhood had impacted me and hurt me. So and then was like bumbling along doing that for quite a while. And actually it was after my divorce, but before I broke up with my partner who I mentioned. And I started to get these women coming just randomly, I guess, because I was divorced and they knew that. Um, and um, and I was helping them recover from their relationships. And there were quite a few that had been in abusive relationships. And it made me realize that I was in an abusive relationship. And there's nothing better than client accountability without them even knowing, which is part of the reason I love what I do, because it keeps me ultimately accountable for myself. Um, yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm in an abusive relationship, which I did leave badly, ended badly. And then going through when my ex-husband started the post-separation abuse, I mean, all I could think of, the thing that kept me going was there's a bigger reason to this. There's a reason because it didn't make any sense. He was just awful for no apparent reason, apart from the fact I was single and had no one to protect me. And yeah, and I just thought there has to be a bigger reason. and I'm just going to go with this and get through it because I haven't got a choice. I can't do anything else. And if that is me learning all of this so I can help other people, then that's what it is. I did get a lot of help and support. I was with Women's Aid for my ex-partner, and that also woke me up to the fact that my ex-husband was and did abuse / neglect me in the marriage. No physical stuff with him, but you know, when you look back and you realize, it's quite shocking. So the shock of that, and then the grief, realizing it wasn't your fault, you weren't the crazy person you always painted out to be. Also going through perimenopause and realizing I probably have ADHD. So it was coming out of me from all sides. Obviously, it was affecting the children. So there was a lot going on. So I did have a lot of help from my very trusted friend who taught me tapping. I have regular sessions with her. I had some counselling sessions. I think counselling has a place, even though I'm much more into coaching and mind-body techniques, not just talk therapy. But as I said, Women's Aid were amazing. So I needed a lot of help. Yeah, and it just reinforced to me, there's so many people here that don't have the help, and those are the women that I want to try and reach.
And I can feel, I can imagine it, and because I've experienced it with clients that they're just so consumed by I guess the hole in the rut that they're in. It
Mm,
just feels like this is just an insurmountable climb.
mm,
Whereas, like, as a coach, all we are doing is kind of putting that hand out there.
yeah.
Um, and I do want to say this now is like in the show notes will be things so you can connect with Liz and myself as
Mm,
well. You know, I urge everybody because like I think one of the biggest challenges so many people face is maybe the isolation, the shame, the embarrassment, you know, because we're told that we should be strong enough to do this on our
mm,
own. And I think this is one of the most empowering things that we can tell each and every one person out there is like, listen, you're going to do it on your own. Like
mm,
that is, you know, that's what we're here to do. We're to here
yeah.
to facilitate what is within which
Yes.
may have been lost,
Yeah.
which may have been conditioned out of you, and all we're going to do is recondition. You know,
Mm,
we're not faking it.
I love
This
that.
this is who you are. You are an
Mm,
amazing, beautiful soul that can
mm,
do whatever you want. You
yeah.
know, and I think that should be the take home message of this is like,
100%.
you know, of this little bit here is like, you've got this, you can do
Yeah.
this, inspire, motivate, but the hand's there. It's always up to that person
Mm,
to grab it. And I've worked with so many people, and time after time, they say this is the best thing I've ever done because
mm,
it's all about them. They're not following
mm.
crap.
Yeah.
It's coming from within that
Yes.
person, and I think that's the beauty of this.
Yeah, yeah. When you see someone fall in love with themselves, usually for the first time ever, that's when you know you're creating something magical, or assisting, facilitating that transformation. It's not us that fixes people or heals people. People heal themselves. They just need some help to do it a lot of the time. Um, and yeah, I mean, what you do is just absolutely amazing. You know, body issues, they have plagued me for very, very many years. And that was a massive part of the issues in my marriage. You know, my husband didn't want to marry me because I was too fat. Like, what
Wow.
does that say? So all the processes that I use with money and relationship stuff, you can use with weight as well. How were you brought up around food? How did your parents program you around food? I'm working with a client at the moment, and although she's come to me about divorce, divorce recovery, she's like, I really need to sort my binge eating out though, and my reliance on food. And you know, there's some really key things like her mum had an issue with weight, put her on a diet from the age of 6, took before and after pictures. Like, what does that do to a 6-year-old child? And the unconscious vow that she's made to never sort of be disloyal to her mum, and her mum's own struggle with food. She like that had never crossed her mind. And then the her parents divorced, funnily enough. That's kind of at the same time as it all started, her issues with food. And probably her mum's focus on her daughter rather than herself and her marriage. So like piecing all these bits together, and food is just such a, it's such a comfort and it can be such a help, but
Mm.
then we lose control around it. I know it's not about control, but it just all gets mixed up with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think from what I see and the conversations that I have with people, and I can imagine such a like maybe the knee-jerk reaction to a lot of women going through such a kind of like a transitional part in their life. It's like, right, I'm gonna get, you said it earlier, the revenge body. I don't know whether you said that
Hmm.
on or off the air,
Oh, it was
but
off air, wasn't it? Khloe
yeah,
Kardashian.
obviously I'm not a Kardashians fan.
I'm not
But
either. Well, I like her. I do like her. And I do like what she facilitates in other people. But we're kind of coming at it from the wrong aspect, aren't we? If it's just for revenge, that's not okay.
it's
We have
it's
to do it for ourselves.
yeah, it's not exactly about you, is it? And then
Mm,
ultimately, when said person has moved on or whatever, and here you are stuck with like problematic relationship with food now because you know what, like I've seen it time and time again, unfortunately, is like the women who are going through these changes. I wanted to ask you, do you ever work with people that are like preparing to divorce or leave? They haven't quite told their
mm.
partner. There's just maybe that initial kind of like prepping,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you'd like.
Yeah, I do. The people in my group program have to be they have to be separated
Hmm.
because I don't want to sort of spend time with people in the group. I mean, I would love to, but I can't manage it if I've got people in there going, oh, should I stay? Should I go? Who leave but then go back? And I think that would be quite frustrating for the other people in the group. But yeah, I would certainly work, and maybe in the future I'll do a program for them. I haven't done a program for them yet because I was worried that I would get frustrated and be just like, just leave them, just for God's sake, just leave them. But like the people that are serious but need to prepare themselves emotionally, I guess where I was, I knew my marriage was failing for many years, but
Mm,
it was that 9 months in the lead up to leaving him that I did need. I had support then in terms of EFT, work on myself and so on. um so yeah, I do work with them, and they were the clients that made me realize that I was in an abusive relationship, some of them, because they were in them. Some of them had come out of them and some of them were in there, and I was like, I think this is, it sounds like it's gone too far.
mm.
And then that was what made me think, yeah, Liz, and yours has gone too far as well. So yeah, ultimate accountability again.
It's crazy how we can see it within others, but and that's the purpose again of
Mm,
having a coach, is to ask powerful questions. And it's hard to see it within yourself because you don't know your own blind spots. They're called blind
mm,
spots for a reason.
yeah,
And you can see it in clients, glaringly obvious. And in
yeah,
many ways, you do want to tell them the answer, but also you don't. You kind
mm.
of, it's up to them to
It is up to
find
them,
it,
yeah.
and it's so much more powerful because people are, Ian, just tell us what I need to eat. And I was like,
Mm.
you could just Google that stuff. You
Yeah,
probably have,
yeah.
like this is not very much like the money stuff, very much like the separation stuff, and very much with the food stuff. This is no longer those surface level problems. This is very much an emotional you. We have we have evolved over millions of years to
Mhm.
primarily survive. And you said yourself there, like you stuck in that marriage
Mm,
for way too long. But I always say to people, yeah, people stay stuck in this dieting cycle for way too long.
mm.
What is, do you think, the catalyst for you to like get to that point of going, right? It's almost like that instantaneous decision. Although it's like maybe taking
Yeah,
3 years to get to it, it has to be like almost bang,
yeah.
done.
Oh, what was it for me? It just happened. It wasn't a conscious, it just came out of my mouth. So we were going through a lot of difficulties. Um, I'd had an ectopic pregnancy and not got much support with that at all. And people were getting involved and it was all very complicated. Um, and I said to him, my plan is once Josh gets to secondary school, and he's now in year 9, it's quite a few years ago. Once he gets to secondary school, once he's been there a year and he's settled, if we aren't better, I'm leaving. And he was very shocked. And then he started having a go at me. And then it was literally 20 minutes. I said, "Do you know what? Fuck that. I'm done. I'm not waiting 4 years or whatever it was. We're doing this now." And that was it. It was absolutely final. There was absolutely no, it wasn't like I can't go back now. It was like, oh my God, I've said it and I'm so done. This is it, you know.
Yeah,
And it was a really liberating moment. I mean, I can't say
huge.
I was jumping around the house laughing and I wasn't crying, but I'm smiling at the moment because it was like, and I just think, thank God, like, what was I thinking? I was going to give it another 3 years. Thank God I said, no, this has to stop. And I wasn't blameless. Um, I was at fault in many ways, but it was just like I set us both free.
Mm.
But sadly, he can't free himself now. He's still so attached to the hatred because he thinks he's done a lot of work, but he hasn't done enough. So, which is really sad. It just makes me sad, really. Well, it doesn't make me sad. I don't get actively sad about it. I just think it's a shame.
Yeah.
And also I know that I can't change that. I've tried to support him. He has become the person that I think he always was. And I have become the person that I was always meant to be, but never was allowed to be. Maybe it's the same for him. Maybe I stopped him from being this really nasty person. Um, but that's just who he is. If he listens to this, he's going to have such a go at me. But that's like the point. I don't care. Like, it's not about that. And it's not about revenge or having to go at him, like the universe, karma, that's all taken care of by somebody else. It's about, like, this has happened to me. And I know most women won't speak up about it, but I'm brave enough to. I'm a bit of a kamikaze pilot at times. I don't make life easy for myself, but I don't care because this is too important not to be spoken about. And if I can just let one woman, identify with my struggle to help her realize that she's not alone, and men, absolutely. I'm actually working with more men at the moment than I ever have, because they do go through it too. This isn't exclusively women. The shoe can be on the other foot. So if I can help inspire one person and just make them think it's not them, this happens sadly to far too many people, then I feel like I've fulfilled my purpose a little bit on this earth.
And I think that's like it speaks obviously the fact that you've moved forward and he hasn't. Um it this journey is going to go at different paces for different people, and that trauma can live with you, and maybe there's elements of guilt there as well for the way
Mm.
that things happened. I don't know, and unless
Don't think there is, is it? He's quite. I mean, yeah, no, and I think a lot of the time, like, I've done the conscious uncoupling course on my own, not with him, but there's a lot of reflection and sort of allowances that you should make, that
Mhm.
they are traumatized, they're lashing out because they're hurt,
Yeah.
you know, all of those things. But then it gets to a level with some of these exes that you just have to say, do you know what? That's not acceptable. That's not okay. That's beyond lashing out because they're hurt. And we just have to accept that they're like that
And I
and
think
deal with it.
that could be like the problematic thing, is because if you've left the relationship, there'll be an element of maybe guilt and giving a, additional leeway because this was your fault to a
Mm,
certain extent. And that's that self-talk, that negative self-talk. Plus, if you've got other people chiming in, um,
yeah.
by definition, the humans are we're tribe.
Yes.
We've got the tribe mentality, and when you leave a relationship, you often leave a lot of things behind, and that's ultimately the thing that can keep people stuck. Is like, yeah, there's uh, as hard as it is, and this is the same with like this dieting stuff, is like as hard as it is, at least there's like a level of predictability. I know I'm safe. I know I've got my house. I know
Mm.
like the kids will be all right as well. Because if we're throwing children in the mix as well, especially young ones, it's even
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah.
Um, it's often until that tipping point is reached where, like, say for example, they've committed adultery or they've stepped over a line, like in some sort of, I don't know, like in a physical way or an abusive way,
Mm.
and the mental abuse is just far too much. Um, as well, I think so many people linger in these relationships just for way too long. They don't
Mm.
trust the gut. They've lost intuition, they've lost confidence, and they stay safe and secure.
Mm.
And as well, they're living for other people, like
Yeah.
family, like, oh, what would my mom say? What would my parents say? Like
Mm.
that walk of shame. And it's like,
Mm.
bloody
Mm.
hell, you're in your 40s
Yeah.
and you're still worried about what your authoritative parents
Yes. Yeah.
would think and say. And you're just
Yeah.
living this life
Yeah.
that isn't
100%.
authentic. And I know what, like, we've spoke about that inner child
Mm.
who is still like at the very core of this, who wants just I, I they just want a cuddle. They
Yeah.
want a big internal cuddle and just told everything's gonna be all right.
Mm. Mm. 100%. I think that, yeah, that's beautiful what you've just said. Like we have to treat our wound, that hurt, wounded part of us as a child, like if you as you would your own child, giving them all the love and unconditional love and support and hugging them, and even when you don't know what else to do, a hug is still going to help. And we have to do that to ourselves 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And acknowledge shame and do the work to release it. um and also it's okay if you're not, if you don't feel shame. I think that was the big thing. I knew, I could tell I had done the work I needed to do before I broke up with my ex, because I wasn't ashamed of it. I wasn't like, oh, my marriage hasn't worked. And I knew my parents would be terrible about it. My sister's divorced, and it was like, oh God, not you as well.
Yeah.
I was like, thanks, that's really supportive. Um, and like when I met someone else, oh, make sure it's a good one this time. I'm like, well, I am trying, Dad. I am trying. But he wasn't. Um, so yeah, it's and acknowledging your part in it, absolutely, and all of your feelings. So yeah, I'll be really honest, Ian. Like I said earlier, like I wasn't faultless. I did cheat on my husband, and I think that is probably part of the reason he hates me so much. But he didn't seem that bothered when we were married, and it did actually make our marriage stronger for a while, which people can often find. Um, and I can hand on heart say one of the reasons I didn't leave sooner was because I can hand on heart say I tried everything to make that marriage work, including having an affair, which wasn't ideal. And I'm very, very sorry for that. It has caused so many problems, and it's a terrible thing to do. Whilst I'm not ashamed of it, I take responsibility for it. And but then the ectopic pregnancy was just another level of, and that's obviously why I had one, was because we were getting on again for the first time in years. So there's lots of complex feelings there, and I could feel really, really ashamed of myself, but I don't, because like, what's the point really?
Mm.
I've done the work to release that, and I don't think anyone should be carrying that level of shame or regret around with them. They have to do the work to release it, because otherwise it's just going to eat away at you and play out in future relationships. And so yeah, it's big, but it is recoverable.
And that's, I think, the the whole point of just, as hard as it may feel at certain times, it is 100% recoverable. You just
Mm.
probably need some guidance. You need a lighthouse.
Mm, mm,
You need to connect with somebody. And a big part of the work that I do with people is that mutual connection and finding out like is this genuinely like a problem that warrants the support, and are you ready to do the work? Um,
mm, mm,
because in the long run, it makes everything easier because
mm,
you actually dig quite deep and you find out a lot of things about yourself that you've never even thought about. And the work isn't necessarily, I mean, from my perspective, like the work isn't maybe what they think the work is, which is doing really hard workouts and eating like a rabbit. That's what they associate the work like.
yeah.
The work is deeper in internal. And I'll always just say, listen, that food and exercise stuff is just really easy. We move on from that very, very quick
Mm,
because like there's only so much I can give you. It's
mm,
more the underlying relationships with stuff and what
100%.
you how it like you think it reflects on you as a person. It's the virtue, it's the morality. When it comes to like you working with clients, when you say like you got to do the work, how do you like tangibly like what is the work? Is that
Yeah.
the vulnerability that they're going to display? Because if somebody's guarded and protected and that
Mm,
wall's up, it's the
yeah.
willingness to kind of allow those bricks to
Yeah.
fall away so that they can kind of
Yeah.
just be. Is that the
Yeah.
work that I'm
Yeah. I talk about doing the work a lot. And it's such a good question because I think it is being that like deeply vulnerable, which for some people is going to be so uncomfortable and potentially quite traumatic in itself, unearthing things that maybe they've never told anyone, things clients have told me and they've said, I've never ever told anyone that. Like clients that have been raped and they've never told anyone. And for me, I mean, I'm an oversharer, as is clear from what I've shared in this interview. But
really?
it's really easy for me. Maybe that's partly the ADHD stuff. I don't know because I'm not that well educated in it. But so forgive me if I've offended anyone by saying that. But yeah, like I think it's really hard for people, but I do think that's the first step. If you're coming to me or to you and just giving us a half story, we can't react to that. We can't, we're trying to dig deeper and like I said earlier, put those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. We can get some of the missing pieces, but we do need help. It's like you do need to give us the edges and then we can do the hard bit. But
Yeah.
without that, it's going to take a lot longer. The results aren't going to be as good, and it's probably going to be more expensive. If you're investing in us, you're paying us to help you. Give us everything so that we can help you as much as we can. And it's such a relief when you share. Um, it's just such a weight, and it might not feel that at first because it brings up shame if you've never shared something like that before. But as long as you're in the hands of a good coach, then, and you might need therapy as well, let's not dismiss that completely. But like if you're getting support and good support through that, it won't be re-triggering. It won't be a shameful thing to share. You won't think, oh, I shouldn't have said anything. You will just feel relieved. And if you do feel like I've had clients that have been shamed by therapists and so on, or just, oh my God, the look on my counselor's face when I told her this. I'm just like, that's so bad. Um, so if that has happened to anyone, keep keep
Mm.
searching until you find the right person that suits you. And it might be that they just suit you for part of your journey, and then you need to find somebody else. I don't expect people to stay with me forever. I expect them to find other people, and maybe they go down a more spiritual path, or they quite often they end up training as therapists or coaches themselves, which is really cool to see. So, but yeah, I'm going to stop before I go off on a tangent.
No,
Does
no.
that make sense?
Funnily enough, I always say that like often the people who find themselves in this coaching space, especially my space,
Mm,
have had like full blown eating disorders, and
yeah.
they've came back, and it's like your story going through the traumatic divorce and everything that's involved, the
Mm,
messy stuff that's all involved, and coming out the side. It's like actually, I want to share this. There's me, and like, whilst I would say my behaviors around food were certainly on the spectrum, it's never been to that degree of extreme like many have, but I
Mm,
just see it time and time again, and I hugely empathize with people. Ironically, there's not a lot of males in my space.
mm,
And I love primarily working with females. The
mm,
relationship works. And as you said there, it is ultimately a relationship that is based on trust, that is based on like a joint, like this synergy of like, hey, this is the intention of what we want
yeah.
as a result. Like a lot of my clients come to me, and of course, there's this cultural pressure to lose weight. And like
Mm,
a great exercise I do is like just five whys, and they'll be like, I want to lose weight. And it's like, well, why? And like a petulant child, ask it
mm,
another
mm,
few more times to each answer. And then we can start to get to the real why.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's never, I just want to lose weight.
Mm,
And it's sometimes like if you are going through some sort of trauma in your life in a hectic season, it's like getting you to or the person to identify like actually I've put this unnecessary additional pressure on my body when there's other factors at play. And I
mm,
think the biggest reason most people struggle is because they are very black and white in their thinking. They're
yeah.
either on or they're off. And it's like,
Yeah.
listen, life is going to be lived in the grey for the majority of it. So learn to dance in it, learn to have this appreciation and a healthy relationship with oneself and do it exclusively for you. And I help people just do what they want, like be themselves. And I think that's ultimately what the entire goal of our coaching is about, is to
Mm,
just give them that freedom, that choice, that autonomy. Finally, and no matter what relationship, and there's going to be a lot of crossover. And I've found that clients who, when someone's been coached in the past, they're usually
mm,
quite open to it. They usually
yeah.
jump in versus someone who is like new to it all. They can be
Mm,
hugely skeptical
mm,
because it's new.
yeah.
And I would say 95% of people, like they are the 95%, the normal. And it takes that degree of chance. Like you've
Yeah.
got to take the leap. You've got to go in barefooted because if you are just dipping your toe in,
Mm,
and if you go into this half-heartedly,
yeah.
and even sometimes I don't know if you find this with clients, is like they may join your program,
Mm,
but they're still not fully in, and you can get that sense.
mm,
And something needs to happen.
yeah.
They need maybe like let's say they're a 9 out of 10 pain wise. They still need to get to that 10.
Yes. Yeah.
And that happens within maybe the coaching, and you're like, and
Hmm.
then all of a sudden they're like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow. And I'm like, this is part of it. This isn't
Yeah.
an exercise of us making life easy
Absolutely.
and like,
Mm,
this is actually giving you the strength.
mm,
And it's
yeah.
fantastic that they go through these experiences
Yeah.
within the
Yeah.
set. And do you ever find that?
Yeah, totally. So I'm running my group money program at the moment, Money Mindset Kickstarter. And I've got a few employed people in there, which usually it's just entrepreneurs. And I've got some people in there who are really struggling financially. And I've got some people that really aren't. They just want to deepen their money mindset. And some people I've worked with before and so on, because all my one-to-one clients have access to that program as well. So we've got a lot of people at different levels. And for some of them, it's got worse before it's got better. And I can almost hear them saying, this was supposed to be a 2024 Kickstarter. And I'm even in a worse state than when I started. But it's so we're a month in now, weekly calls, and it's just starting. The ones that were really in the shit. I'm not saying they're out of it, but they're just starting to take the action, the
Mm.
small steps to say, okay, what can I actually do? We've done some healing work around what's happened to me and where I have been and where I am for them. What can I actually do to change this? And they're starting to take inspired action. And it might be small steps, or someone's made a fairly big step, and it's not suddenly like they've manifested loads of money, but they're starting to take the steps to say, okay, on a practical level, what do I need to do now? And I'm supporting them on the emotional level I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, but they are going out and getting informed. I do sprinkle a little bit of sort of practical money management type stuff in there. And, you know, obviously I would love for them to go, oh my God, I've got this new opportunity and I've got this new job, I've been promoted, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't always happen. I have had that happen. I've had 2 promotions. One got an extra 40 grand a year. One got a 10K bonus and a big pay rise. And she's now magic at it. She gets bonuses almost every year for her and her team.
Mhm.
And she never would have done that before. So, you know, you do get the big wins, but when you don't, as a coach, you just have to, you know, go calm yourself down and go, especially in the past, my desire would be to fix someone. I really wanted to fix people, but I can't. But if I can help them to start their journey of fixing themselves, which is what these people are doing, then that's enough. You know,
Yeah.
some people will get the massive transformation, some will get the small steps, which can lead to the big transformation.
Yeah, it's like it's that saying is like the best time to plant a tree was like 300 years ago.
Yeah.
The next best time is right now.
Is
It's kind
now
of like,
100%.
you know what, so many people, it might be overwhelming. There might need to be a career shift. There's
Mm,
certainly like with my clients, there needs to be a shift in this relationship with food.
mhm,
Clients are really, really surprised of how rapid like everything changes when they are in the right space. I'll always
yeah.
say this if I do like a what I call a breakthrough call with clients, that is when I give them the decision and I call it
Mm,
the power of yes. When they say
mhm,
yes and the transfer of energy,
yeah.
which is money
Mhm,
and money mindset, there is
mm,
so much emotion tied with money and
mm,
this perceived value, which
yeah.
what is just bits of paper and metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, and it's something we exchange for other things with perceived
Mhm,
value. And this is a big thing that I work on is value. If
yeah.
somebody says to me, "Oh, what do I get?" And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you get? Like, are you looking for like features and benefits? Like you get a shiny this, that, and the other. Like
Mm,
your values are totally
yeah.
disconnected. You value bullshit.
Yeah.
I tell you what you get, change your fucking life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
You
you
get the
get. You
transformation.
get
Yeah.
freedom. You get this internal shift
Mm,
that doesn't necessarily need this external stuff because now you're looking for validation off other
mm,
people. Oh, look how
mm,
much money I'm making. Oh, look at
mm.
me. Look at what car I'm driving. Validate me. Look at my body.
Yeah.
You know, is it for you or is it for them? Could
Mm,
you not have to like tell anybody?
mm,
Like I've got clients and the people will say because if they do have a physical transformation, which I can't guarantee either,
mhm.
because I
Yeah.
don't know how messed up they are mentally, emotionally, and biologically. But
Yeah.
what I am here to do is help them with their relationship with food and give them potentially the foundations
Mhm.
that may, and I'm saying to them, listen, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to pass.
Yeah.
You can spend that time fucking around, or you can start right now, and that is your tree growing. And I don't know which way those branches are going to go, and neither do you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's hoist some seeds in the ground and get a fucking move
Mm.
on. You know, and
And a
like,
tree can grow a decent amount in 5 years, can't it?
oh
So it's
yeah,
like, yeah, let's not waste any more time.
but
Like
it's like
we are
what?
all getting older. Let's just get it done. Like,
Yeah,
well, not get it done as though there's an end point, but let's start. Because if we don't start, nothing else is going to change, and you're going to stay stuck.
yeah, and
And
that's a big question. Is like, what do you want to look back on?
yeah,
Like in your elderly years, you're in your deathbed, and you're
mm,
stuck in a relationship that you hate. You're
mm,
stuck in a job that you hate.
mm,
You know,
mm.
you're stuck. You've lived with this eating disorder when all like you had to do was start that journey.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
could be with me, and I'm like, you've got to have the willingness there to make a mistake, to
mm,
fail. Because
mm.
I'm telling you, it's the people who fail time and time and time again. They're the people who are ultimately successful.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You've got to have some skin in the game. You've got to take some risks, haven't you?
And
Um, Otherwise you're just floating along, and
yeah,
usually those are the people that aren't admitting to themselves, because they're not admitting externally to others that there's an issue. It's like staying in an unhappy marriage, staying broke, in a crappy job that doesn't pay very well, when you could do so much more, you just don't believe you could. And same as, okay, I don't need to stay in this unhealthy body, with this unhealthy relationship with food. There is another way. It doesn't have to be what we think it is so often.
And this is why it's called rewired eating. It's
Mm.
it's rewiring and also listening to and tapping. See what I did there, Liz? Tapping
Love it.
into what is like our primitive brain trying to do. It's trying to protect and preserve.
100%.
It's not designed to keep you happy.
Yeah.
It's designed to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So being stuck in a shitty situation, it's safe.
Yeah.
But the
It's a
reality
safe
is
bet.
you can totally do this. And with my clients, I just say, listen, this is just like learning to drive.
Mm. Mm.
And we're going to start very slow. We're going to meet you where you're at with the skill set that you have, and we're going to take it step by step. But ultimately, you have to get in that bloody car and sit behind the wheel because
Yeah.
you're not going to drive just standing outside looking at it. You're not going to drive watching YouTube videos and reading
Yeah.
books and listening to
So
podcasts
true.
like this. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, listen,
Yeah.
I want whether you contact me or whether you contact Liz or whether you're on your own journey. Maybe you're a client working with one of us because I hope Liz shares this with hers.
No, I will.
You
100%.
know, just because like I want this to complement your journey in some sort of way.
Mm.
And I always think with these podcasts, I'm doing it for the clients I have right now.
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do they need to hear? What like additional resources could I give them? How could I supplement this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking to them without like directly talking to them.
Mm.
Um, and I just
Mm-hmm.
think it's such an amazing thing. And we've just touched on money there, and I think
Mm.
that in and itself is probably another conversation. And I'm just so mindful of time, and I could stay and talk to you for.
We could stay and talk for hours, couldn't we?
But
Let's
Josh
talk more
wants
about
back
money
on
another
his
time.
yeah. Let's have another one. But Josh wants on his PlayStation 4.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We're
I
using
had
the internet.
I had to keep my son off the PlayStation.
Bless
Terrible
him.
mother. I know, bless him. It's worked though, touch wood. But I did,
Oh,
yeah. And I think he stayed off it because else we might have lost our connection.
yeah, internet's fine. Liz, you said that you've got an amazing YouTube with some top quality videos
Oh,
on.
don't. That's
Um,
horrible.
Sorry, she's gonna go after this. Delete, delete, delete. But hey,
No, do you know
listen,
what?
go ahead.
No, it's really good you said that because now I have to update my YouTube channel. I
Yeah.
do have a really old YouTube channel which is quite awful, and it's got a lot of more business coachy type stuff on it. It has got a really cute video of my daughter when she was tiny tapping with a little bear, saying what tapping's all about. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there that I'm terrible branding, just like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But I do have other channels. So I haven't, my YouTube isn't up to date, so don't go there unless you want to laugh. But yeah, I'm doing a bit on TikTok. Facebook is a great place to find me. Liz Hancock 2, the number 2, I think I'm on there. I do have a Facebook group.
Listen, Liz, I will
You'll put it all
stick
in,
it
won't you?
all in the
Yeah,
show notes.
yeah,
TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, your website as well.
yes.
What is there anything that like obviously people, if they're looking to like explore this space, do you have
Mm,
any
mm.
resources that they could maybe look at?
Yes. So I've got a brand new lead magnet. I shouldn't say that. A brand new resource for
No,
people so that
lead
they,
magnet.
yeah, lead magnet. But it's basically, guys, a way to get your email so I can market to you. Let's be honest about it. But no, to give you value, hopefully. So it's called How to Recover from Divorce, especially if your ex is a narcissist. So it's just a little worksheet that will help people. It's not live yet, but hopefully by the time you listen to this podcast, listeners, it will be up there. So Ian can share the link, but that will be on my website, theeftcoach.com, and there are some resources, some money resources on there as well. So other little things that you can download. So yeah, it's be great to have some more followers, have some more people in the gang. And I am creating a divorce recovery Facebook group as well. So that will be on the thing as well. But yeah, just want to get the word out. and know for women and men to know that there is support there.
And listen, I think, like, first and foremost, us coaches love having conversations, and that can just be simply where it starts, in the inbox, in the email, in the messenger. Just reach out, say, hey, I heard you on the Rewired Eating podcast with Ian. Isn't he a great guy? And then you guys can have back and forward about how great I am, and then eventually get on to the kind of like, you know, I've going through this sort of stuff, and just gain that connection. And ultimately, we're there to help, you know, people like get where they want to be. But Liz, no, like, honestly, I've really enjoyed today's conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
And I appreciate your time massively. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I think as well, Ian, like you must, I know you would anyway, I know this before this conversation, but you must create such a safe container, because, you know, I've been really happy to be really open, and so I think any client coming to you, I can't, you know, they'd have a very magical experience, I think.
Thank you very much. I always say to people, listen, would you refer someone to me? And I would certainly do that for you. So no, I appreciate your time, and this is why you're on here. I always make sure any guests that I have on here is someone that I know and feel comfortable with the information that they're going to. She's not just going to throw a curveball in here and talk like loads of shit. Like, I'm like, oh, what have I done? This isn't good. Well, to be fair, it wouldn't get published. No one would know.
True. Well, I hope I haven't done that.
Yeah, I'll just block you and disconnect. And but once again, thank you very much, Liz.
Pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and catch you next time.
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Ian.
I just want to say a massive thank you to Liz for being on the show and spending time with us today. If you would like to reach out to Liz, all the details are in the show notes. I've also put some details in the show notes for some resources that you can look at that I have. I have a free diet scorecard, and you'll get sent a few things here and there just to kind of aid you and support you. Please feel free to join the Rewired Eating Facebook group, a community where I want to get people together in order to support and guide them through what is a challenging landscape as far as diets and nutrition and food is concerned. So once again, thank you, Liz. Thank you for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share to a friend, and catch you next time.